next one is, right, so our best performing video ever on the Storytime with Dutch Mantell YouTube channel was when Hulk Hogan went on Joe Rogan and started saying a lot of questionable stuff on Puerto Rico and Mysterious Man and stuff like that.
A bunch of crap. Yep.
So, The Rock is now keeping up the wrestlers going on the Joe Rogan show and coming up with a big old pile of bullshit. So,
let's hear this. I've heard it.
Did you watch the clip? Do you know what? Why don't we watch the clip as well so everybody knows what we're talking about? 1 minute. Right, so here is what Mr. Dwayne The Rock Johnson said about Pride.
In 97, during that time, while I was still going out to LA and working out, we were crossing all the MMA guys. Pride just opened up in Japan. So I was seeing all these MMA guys going over to Pride. You remember that time, right? I think you might have been with UFC at that time, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, I was making $150,000 wrestling 235 days a year. So do the math of that and how much you're making per match. We start hearing, hey, these guys over in Pride are making 250, 350, 500. And I thought then, well, fuck, I don't think I'm going to make it in WWE. People are booing me out of the arenas.
Apologies, everyone. Dwayne's got a potty mouth in this as well.
Me to fucking smile. I don't want to fucking smile.
He's got a what?
Got a potty mouth.
I start talking to Ken Shamrock at that time, who's wrestling with us. I run into Mark Kerr. I start talking to him. He told me a little bit about Pride, and I have this idea in my head. Well, maybe I should train to MMA and go to Pride and make money, real money, and then I don't have to smile. I'm sure I'm going to get fucked up over there and knock one of my lungs loose, but maybe I could do something.
Okay, so
what a potty mouth.
No.
So ask me a question.
Well, I'm going to tell you four things. Apart from the fact that, okay, so he's talking about 1997. Joe Rogan wasn't with UFC either, apart from maybe one appearance. I don't think he went to UFC until like the early 2000s as a commentator, so even Joe Rogan's not fully truthful there. But The Rock is claiming that he was considering going to Pride. And the first event took place for Pride in October 1997. This is when The Rock has already turned heel, his character is gaining huge traction, and he doesn't have to quote-unquote smile. Secondly, Fedor Emelianenko, he mentioned, his first Pride fight wasn't until 2002. And then Ken Shamrock's first Pride fight wasn't until 2000. And if you think that The Rock has got his timelines mixed up slightly, I mean, he can't have, because, he was going out and doing the smiling thing. He turned bad guy in August 1997. And then, as I say, his character started taking off. But he wouldn't have got mixed up by saying UFC instead, because UFC was dead on its arse in 97. That's why Ken Shamrock and others like Dan Severn and a host of other MMA guys were then doing pro wrestling to supplement their income, because there was no money in the game, at least in the US. So, having heard all that, what do you think?
Well, I hate to say this, and I'm not a stickler on time restraints as you, but thinking about going to a shoot organization is one thing. Actually training and getting in an actual fight is something else. Now, I can't imagine The Rock versus Fedor. You ever seen that guy go?
Oh, back in the day, yes, I have.
Oh my God, he would have. He rips those guys a new butthole. See, I didn't say a-hole because I don't have a potty mouth like The Rock has, but yeah, it was. I would have to say it. I don't think there's no chance in hell that The Rock. He may think about going. But then you got to actually get in there and do something. And I don't think he would make it. I just don't. Now, he made $150,000 for how many dates?
Oh, he was claiming, what was he on the, was he saying 230 dates or something? Or maybe he meant on the road 230 days.
Hey, guys, years ago in this business, we made a hell of a lot less than that for more dates. I mean, and they wonder why guys got on drugs. Because hell, you had to do something. You wasn't making any money. And somebody says, well, if you wasn't making any money, why did you stay in it? Because it kept me from having to get a regular job, really. Because then I would have to get up and go to the job and actually do something with somebody standing over my shoulder. And I've never been I never did my best work in anything with somebody standing over my shoulder. But I kind of got off topic there. Well, and Rock told a very interesting story, but I don't ever think that Rock would have been a success in the WWE, because he couldn't do his interviews, he couldn't do his routine, and because he would be too busy getting punched in the mouth and getting up off his butt. So good story though. I like the story. He does have an engaging way of telling a story, but if you really think back on the truthfulness of it, or the practicality of it, or the reality of it, I would have to say no. I don't think it would have ever happened.
As I say, actually I never really do this, but I wrote a book on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, which involved a heck of a lot.
Oh, you're a little biased. You're biased again with him.
I would like to think I'm somewhat of an authority on the life of The Rock, even though I can't remember a damn thing I wrote in that book. But I did remember one thing. Sorry, it was years ago now. The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, let's say, has nowhere near to the level of a Hulk Hogan or something like that, but he does exaggerate stories the further away he gets from the original timeline, essentially. And a good example is when he's talking about USWA and his time there, and he's talking about, man, I was there a year and they were paying me $40 a night, and then they were paying me $30 a night, then they were paying me a bag of balloons and a pencil a night, and it just gets more exaggerated.
He was being overpaid.
Yeah, well, I know you weren't there during the Flex Cavana days. You were there like a year later for the last USWA. But I always thought that he always comes out with, as well, that I noticed when researching that book, is the woe is me. I had to pick myself up off the ground and which in a sense he did, but in a more real sense, when he started getting into wrestling, he had an in with, had an in with Pat Patterson through his dad, Rocky Johnson. Mm-hmm. Pat loved him immediately. He was given every single opportunity to get over. I can't prove this, but I've got a feeling that when he was in USWA, I imagine the WWF would have also put him on a retainer as well for like a weekly amount just to get him through. So he's probably one of the best paid people in USWA.
Well, wait a minute. Was he signed to WWF at the time or no?
I think he was, yeah. So, as I say,
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
What they did with Edge, Adam Copeland, at the time was they paid him a retainer to basically retain his services, but they said, go on the indies, when we're ready for you, we'll call you. So I imagine they probably did a similar thing with Dwayne, paid him a bit, and then USWA paid him, the minimum $40 a night as well. So that is my contention. But the biggest thing is, what I'm trying to get at here, is that this is how privileged and how much more sway he had with the company than anyone else of his age and experience, is that after a few months in USWA, he called J.J. Dillon, who was still Vice President of Talent Relations at the time, and said, I don't want to be here anymore. So what they did was, they went, okay, and then they made him. They moved into Connecticut, and then they had Dr. Tom Pritchard train him, and Mark Henry and Akim Albrecht, and then further on more. But imagine if that was someone like Chris Candido in the same thing, and he rang up and went, JJ, I've had enough of this place here. Can you do something about it? JJ would be like, okay, well, you're fired then, or we'll never see. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, he got treated a little bit differently, but not necessarily who his father was, because they saw something in him.
Well, it got him a foot in the door.
And he was, if you want to compare him to Chris, he was like 4 or 5 inches taller, outweighed him by 60 pounds or 70 pounds, a bigger guy. And he had a bigger pedigree because he played college football at the University of Miami. Plus, he had personality. Now, I don't know where they found this personality, but Rock had to show it to him at some point. So I guess he showed it to Pat Patterson. And Pat was a pretty good judge of talent, a good judge of character. I rode with him, I bet, for 6 straight months in Florida. Entertaining guy. That was back in the CB days. That was like eons ago. But we used to talk to the truckers, and I would talk to them, and I would mess with them, and the Pat would laugh the whole way. Funny guy. Hang on a minute. Damn. I'm dying here.
Yeah, I think we're both getting the same thing at the moment. Anyway, just to clarify, it's not that The Rock wasn't one of the greatest sports entertainers, pro wrestlers, workers that you'll ever find, but he does go on quite a lot about how hard he had it when he first got into wrestling. But it's like, dude, you're in USWA for 3 months. You learned a lot. Then you got preferential treatment because you got one-on-one training with Dr. Tom, and then you're going to be given 1,000 chances, and you were put on 150 grand out of the gate. So, sometimes you just got to say, actually, WWF did me an absolute solid after absolute solid on that one, rather than the hard luck story.
Okay, your contention is that he was given a guarantee out the gate.
Yeah, $150,000.
But you don't know that.
Well, The Rock has said this.
No, he said he was making $150,000 on 235 dates. That's what he made.
Yeah. But that wasn't in USWA. I think he signed his contract the day of Survivor Series. And then still he was unhappy with $150,000 and he threatened to go to WCW. I can't remember who. I think it was Steve Lombardi actually talked him out of it and said, dude, you're looking a gift horse in the mouth here. Just sign the damn paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would advise him to stay in WWF too.
Yeah,
at that point.